we came into the legislature, we, as a committee chairman, the House committee sat and determined that there are a number of issues with funding of infrastructure in Nigeria, particularly roads. So as a chairman of the House Committee on Works, our committee got together and said, look, there has to be legislative solution to these issues. First and foremost, we determined there was governance issue. Secondly, there was funding issue. And thirdly, capacity of people working in the industry, in the road sector. And in all these three definitions, we shared our sentiments and views with the House, with the ministry. And they bought into it. For issue of governance in the sector, we proposed the FRA bill, Federal Roads Authority bill, which was passed by the Senate and by the House. And it was sent to the president, he didn't sign it. We also knew that there was issue of funding. And I will tell you that there is nothing anybody can do to bettering Nigerian roads except they approach it through the legislative solution we provided, because that is what happens in other jurisdictions. You can take it to the bank. Even the president can't help himself, because you must have funding for roads. And you must also have employment for Nigerians. So the issue of funding, we had Federal Roads Bill. And that Federal Roads Bill was able to address issues of having some seed capital for road funding. Seed capital by way of road user charges, weighing bridges, and you raise some money. If you raise about 100 billion, 200 billion per annum through those measures, it means that what comes by way of appropriation becomes intervention. There is no way you can fund road development and maintenance through the budget. The budget is not steady. Your revenue is not constant. But once people are applying the roads, your revenue is measurable. And when you take such measures, you can now afford to concession roads for about 30 or 35 years. And that comes to the issue of employment. And how does that work? When you contract a road for 2-3 years, once the road finishes, every engineer that is associated with the road is redundant. But if you concession a road for 30 years for maintenance, it is when you are doing maintenance, whether it is bridges, whether it is roads, pavement, whether it is associated displays, or even cutting grasses on the road, or hiring people that will be like what they call AA, and people that will take away vehicles that are bad on the road. That is when you provide employment. And let us say they have farmed out or concessioned it to somebody for 35 years. You can afford to employ about 100, 200 people for 35 years. And what is the lifespan of your work? How long do you work in a lifetime? You provided employment for people in addition to the revenue. And even the people who are going to run the roads or do the roads will do it well, so they don't want it to fail. And whatever revenue is generated there, government takes their own portion, the people maintaining the road takes based on what is required. And the wear and tear on Nigerian vehicles will reduce. Then, that was what the road fund bill was supposed to cure. The president has also not signed that one. Then, in terms of professionalism and capacity in the road sector, or generally, we have current. We amended the Current Act, which brought them up to speed to contemporary times. We now also make sure that construction companies became members of the council, because they constitute a good percentage of the engineering firms. So because if they are members of the council, they will know what the issues are. You can't be shaving a man in his absence. So there are members, and now we also said, okay, there has to be some level of local content with regard to those companies. And then current will now be much more professional. It's not a matter of an engineer reading engineering in first class will go and start teaching in secondary school. No, they should be employed in company. They should be employed or they should be gainfully engaged themselves. So that deals, current act, which the president was gracious to sign, dealt with the issue of professionalism and capacity. So, but as we return to the assembly, my promissory note to our people is that we rejig those bills that were not signed by the president and make sure that that gets done, because they've gone through the whole processes. So it will get expeditious attention. I know there are a number of things the president, the executive pointed out. But this time around, I believe if the government, if the executive wants to help them, help itself, and to help Nigerians in the sector, those bills have to be signed. Because the way, for the first time in the House, we were able to assemble a technical committee, particularly the road fund. We assembled people from 27 agencies that will ever have anything to do with the bill. From CBN, from Ministry of Finance, from Attorney General's Office, from Nigerian Society of Engineers, from COREN, from Ministry of Works, from FEMA, from the states, from Road Transport Workers Association, from even PPRA. Anybody who would have anything to do, from FIRS, anybody who would have anything to do with regard to having revenue on Nigerian roads, no matter the level of interface, they were part of the committee. And what they arrived at constituted that bill. The ingredients was what made up that bill. So I believe strongly that these are some of the issues that, when dealt with, when these legislative solutions are properly domiciled, where they should be given proper attention, that's the only way you can begin to cure some of the defects we have of unemployment. When people come and tell you we don't have sufficient doctors, but doctors are unemployed. When people come and tell you we don't have sufficient engineers, but engineers are unemployed. We don't have enough teachers, but teachers who have read education are unemployed. How? It means that there is a structural defect. So those are the things I promise my constituents and Nigerians that we are going to keep our eye on in this assembly. We started it last time. I was privileged to be a member of a chairman of a committee on works. We are going to continue that effort. By God's grace, I'm part of the leadership. So we're going to drive, focus essentially on the economy, legislation on the economy, infrastructure, and then on employment and security.